If you're ready for an exciting adventure, well, get ready to pack your bags, because in this video I'm taking you on a journey through my incredible trip to the west coast of the US. From the stunning beaches of LA to the bustling city of Vegas, I'll be showing you all the amazing places that I visited and the experiences I had and the lessons I learned along the way. So sit back and relax and let's embark on this unforgettable journey together. I had an AI write this script, but I thought this is not genuinely me. So here I am, being honest, open human being, and I'll go through my entire budget and how much I spent across the US West Coast. In that time, I visited LA, Vegas, San Francisco, and Yosemite National Park. Let's go. West Coast America. It's always been a dream of mine to visit LA and its incredible beaches, its incredible movie culture, and the destination for all of the top YouTubers. The West Coast is also full of nature's best mountains, rich food culture, and bustling cities with entertainment options everywhere. But all of this came at a price, and this is how much I spent traveling as a budget backpacker for 4 weeks across the US, including car hire, food, accommodation, fuel, entertainment, and some emergency expenses that I had to make on the way. My voice is really bad today because I've been shouting over club music in Bali, which is where I am at the moment, so I do apologize. So let's get into the itinerary of my trip. So I started in LA and I stayed there for 8 nights in a hostel, the cheapest one I could find in the best area with free parking. So I hired a car because I wanted to do some networking and touristy things around the area, because I heard also that the transport in LA is not very good. Me being a frugal financial minimalist, I looked around for the best deals I could on car hire. I tried Turo and other car sharing platforms, but I couldn't find one that was really cheap. But in the end, after many hours of searching, I found one that was big enough for me to sleep in. Even though it was more expensive than a compact city car, I thought it'd be great because I could save money on accommodation. So I found a deal with my Amex Rewards card, giving 10% off car rentals. Link in the description if you want to sign up to the American Express Gold Rewards card, as I really recommend it. Check out my other video on that one actually. But it was still super expensive. It was around £920 for 27 days. The company I used was Discover Cars, and it was super easy to rent a car with them as they're just a renting platform. The actual rental car was from Sixt Rent a Car. I just arrived at the airport and took their free shuttle bus from LAX to the rental car place, and I kindly asked them to upgrade me for free, and they did, which was great. So I got a massive Toyota 4Runner. They handed me the keys, first time driving in US, and I had to get that in there because I'm a car guy, and by far it was the biggest car I'd ever driven. Luckily, it was in the US because that car would not fit on UK roads. Then I had to go to the store and set up a SIM card for my trip. I had to buy a USB cable because I forgot mine. The guy in Target was super helpful, signing me up to an AT&T $65 unlimited data SIM card, even though it's super expensive. I mean, currently I'm in Bali and it costs like £5 to get 30 gig of data. In the US, it's at least 10 times that. So I spent 8 days in LA and I did the touristy things to start with, of course. So Santa Monica Beach, Venice Beach, Hollywood Hills, and then headed to see The One. Now, those of you who don't know what The One is, it's this $500 million house that actually sold for $130-something million in the end. And it's the biggest home ever built in California, in the west coast of the US, and will probably ever be built in LA because of the new laws they have in. It's an insane house at the top of Bel Air. I mean, it has its own nightclub. It has dozens of bathrooms, dozens of bedrooms, and it was sold about a year ago at a huge loss after taking 10 years to build. And all of those touristy things were super cheap because all I spent money on was fuel and a few restaurants. But just a warning, parking is really hard to do in LA for free. Plus, it's super expensive. Even if you're parking for an hour, it could be like $6-8. But in some supermarkets and stores, you get to park for free for up to 2 hours. So that's pretty handy if you're going in there anyway. Then my friend came to visit for a few days, so we'd already met in Italy last summer, and so she came down and we went and did more touristy things for a few days. But at this time, the bill started adding up. During this trip, it showed me how much food costs in the US, and it's astronomical. It's like 3 times the amount it would cost in the UK. Even bread and milk, basic items, cereal and stuff, it was like $6-7 for a box of cereal. I can't believe how expensive it was. In the UK, for a box of cereal, you can get for £3 or £4. Even people in the UK are complaining how much it costs to buy groceries. It's nothing compared to the US. So my friend who came to visit, we went to Paramount Studios, which is the first thing I recommend on this trip. It's amazing to go and explore inside where all the films and TV shows are produced. The tour costs $63 per person, and then unfortunately slap on a $20 parking fee for parking at the official Paramount Studios parking lot. So I definitely would avoid that if you can. There's free 2-hour parking on the roads nearby, so you should definitely go around the parking lot instead and just park on the main road. The next day we headed to the observatory and the Hollywood sign, where there were spectacular views of LA, and luckily all of that was free. Then we went to the Wiltern to watch one of my favourite bands that I discovered last year called Wolf Alice, and they're actually from the UK, but it was funny how they had a lyric in one of their songs. It was like, but they were doing a show in LA on the same time as my trip. So I invited my friend along and she came along too. We had a great time and luckily I could get tickets. One thing I would say is that LA crowds and US crowds are not so hyped as much as UK crowds in the music scene. If you're from the US, I'd say that you guys treat it like it's like a theatre show. Like you have a relaxing drink and you just happen to see the band playing. Maybe there isn't many diehard fans of Wolf Alice in the US. Anyway, in the end, it was just me and two other girls that were jumping around and dancing. And then on my last day, me and two friends went to the Getty Museum, which I do highly recommend. The parking is the only thing you've got to pay for because everything else is free. There was also incredible views out there of downtown LA, the beach, and the rest of the LA area. It was incredible. After this, I drove towards Vegas, stopping off in a little town called Barstow after finding a cheap motel and not doing the whole trip in one. Now this was cool because it was my first motel experience and you always hear about it on the movies and TV shows, and it was exactly what I thought it would be like. A budget place just for the night. And Barstow is an interesting place as it's in the middle of desert and nothing really around it. I couldn't really see anything touristy to do there, so I just did my laundry and left the following morning. But before I left, I actually booked accommodation for that night in Vegas because I hadn't had anything booked. So I actually managed to book a last minute deal at the Luxor Hotel. I got a room for $99. Well, in the end it was $150, which is a thing I'll get to later about how the fees are added on to everything. But the room would otherwise cost like $300-400, so I was saving a hell of a lot of money doing that. And staying at the Luxor Hotel was an incredible privilege. I found out I got a family room and a free upgrade. So here's what the room looked like. I mean, it had everything like a little kitchen, dining room, living room, massive bedroom, and bathroom. Then, after spending an incredible few nights around the casinos... Okay, I'm in the middle of Vegas and this is mental. I've got the wind there. You can't see it. Okay, well I've got the Venetian there, you can see that. There's no one else around. It's about 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And I've never done anything like this before. The Venetian is crazy. It's got the most insane shops, upmarket designer stores. It's got a punting and, you know, an entire like artificial river in it. So, what's that sign say? Yeah, Wynn, Southgate, that's what it says. Peace out. I headed to When We Were Young Festival, which was the main reason I wanted to go to Vegas. I got a really good deal a week before the event and bought tickets 5 days before it was due to start. I picked up what usually would have cost $350 plus for just $125. A quick word on the festival, and I just wanted to say how incredible it was. It was a real throwback for all the pop punk and emo rock genres that I used to listen to when I was a teenager. To see bands such as Paramore, Bring Me the Horizon, A Day to Remember, and a throwback being Avril Lavigne, who I'd never seen before. I actually forgot how much I listened to her growing up. And earlier in the day, I got to see my favourite band, which is Paris, and their new songs for the first time, which again was an incredible experience. I spent $70 on merch and $70 on food and drink during the day, and it took my total up to around $265 for the whole festival, which was not bad considering a brand new ticket was going to cost $350. For 2 nights I stayed in an Airbnb during the festival before I switched to a super cheap casino hotel. It was called Silver Sevens and it was a bit further away from the strip. It was super cheap when I booked it online, less than $40 a night actually. But another thing that frustrated me in the US is that they add the same again for resort fees because you're staying in Vegas. So $40 turned into $80 per night. After a few days in Vegas and visiting the strip, I chose to gamble it all on the last night and actually went to do a poker tournament for the first time in my life. It was $100 buy-in, but you could leave any time, so I decided not to do that. Of course, I lasted a good hour and a half before I went bust and went all in on one hand, where I thought I was guaranteed to win with 2 pair. I think I had ace-8, but the guy had a straight, and I completely didn't even think about that being a possibility. So I was so frustrated and angry at that time. I was like fist pumping the air, like really in anger. Like, how was I so stupid doing that? I did think about going back in with another $100, but I thought, let's not do that because that's how gambling addiction starts. The next day was filled with driving back to LA where I wanted to see Paris again. They were doing a very special gig at the Troubadour. So I checked into my place in LA. It was the cheapest hostel I could find called Banana Bungalow, and I watched my favorite band, Paris. The next day I headed off to San Francisco and stopped off in a town called Bakersfield. Not somewhere I recommend, but a cheap $50 a night motel room and a place to do all my laundry again was a great time to recharge and refuel. The drive to San Francisco was fun and the hostel was right in the centre of San Francisco. Best of all, it had free parking, so I only spent $40 per night on the room and met an old American guy in my room. He actually knew a lot about the UK, so we talked about that for a bit. He was an interesting guy. He actually wrote scripts for TV shows and plays and wanted to submit them to Hollywood. I then explored San Francisco for 3 nights. Took a $60 tour around Alcatraz Island and prison, but it was pouring down with rain that day. But it was a great experience. I do recommend Alcatraz. I walked around Pier 39 to see the sea lions. And then I went up Lombard Street, which is that famous, really steep street where all the cars go in and out, winding around. Now, San Francisco is a beautiful city. Incredible buildings as well, with really cool designs. And the steep roads make it super interesting to see the views across the other side of the city. I then joined a free walking tour the next day where I was taken around Chinatown, tried out some fortune cookies, and looked at the cool back streets of inner San Francisco. The next day, I headed to Muir Woods after driving over the Golden Gate Bridge, which was a cool, surreal experience, really, where I saw these redwood trees, which were hundreds of years old, if not thousands of years old. And not only that, fuel was super cheap there, so I filled up before heading into San Francisco again. Now, just a warning, to go one way over the Golden Gate Bridge is fine, but coming back, you've got to pay like a $9 toll charge. So after a few days in San Francisco, I drove to Yosemite National Park, which was my last destination. After a few hours driving, luckily it wasn't as bad as going from LA to San Francisco or LA to Vegas. It was only about 3 hours. Made my way to a lodge, which offered hostel-type dorm rooms in the middle of the woods, just near Yosemite entrance. On the first day, I explored Yosemite National Park, which was just incredible. Seeing the beautiful Half Dome and doing some nature hikes up mountains. Now, the entrance fee to Yosemite is $35 per car, but that lasts up to 7 days, and you can take many people within the car if you want to. I spent 3 days there, so I got a good value out of it, really. And although it was a great experience, it was freezing, freezing cold compared to the other parts of the West Coast that I visited, so make sure you wrap up warm or go in the summer. After meeting cool people in Yosemite, I made my way back to LA where I get my flight back to the UK. But I had 2 days left at this point, and I have to tell you this story about the guy I met. He was the global marketing director for Hilton Hotels. He retired a few years ago, and he was telling me a story about how he was living and working in Macau, and he opened up all the new casinos and hotels there. He was telling me how he worked with David Beckham for many marketing shoots. If you're out there somewhere, and if you remember me from that bar chat we had, please reach out. Anyway, he also told me about his drive in his Porsche around the Hollywood Hills area. Right guys, let me start again on that Porsche trip, because that is in the sun, and my phone got overheated and it said it needed to cool down. I didn't realize that. Oops. So anyway, this guy with his Porsche, and he was racing with this other guy in his Porsche, and it turns out after they stopped at red lights that it was actually James Cameron, the movie director, he was racing with. Incredible story in LA. Anyway, so my trip, I spent a total of £5,028 in just 27 days. If you want any tips about how to save money in the US, please comment them down below and I can do my best to help out. Otherwise, just get a cheaper car. Be prepared to sleep in it if you want to. I didn't feel safe. Remember when you go supermarket to check the fees and everything on top. So always add at least 10, 12, 15% to the price. And also tipping. Make sure you include a price of tipping when you order things in a restaurant. With that said, thank you for watching. Sorry, there's an elderly guy outside. No idea what he's doing. I think he's just washing his feet or something. Okay, banana bungalow.